Hello, my name is Danny Nolan and I'm the Director of ChassisSim Technologies. And welcome to this latest ChassisSim video tutorial. And today, ladies and gentlemen, what we are going to discuss is, quite frankly, something that's been a long time overdue. And what we're going to be talking about today is ChassisSim Driver in the loop. In particular, a hands-on example of what you need to do to set it up, not just from a car model perspective, but also to the nuts and bolts of how you install it and what you need to be looking for, practical tips, how to, etc., etc. So that's what we're going to talk about. So first things first, before we talk about installing ChassisSim Driver in the loop, before we discuss the mechanics of actually doing it, let's talk about what you need to do on a car model side to get you ready for ChassisSim Driver in the loop. Now, the first thing that you're going to do for ChassisSim to get a model ready for ChassisSim Driver in the loop, and to be quite honest, it really isn't a big change, is that you're going to be clicking on the front tire and you're going to be going down to this section in the tire model on self-aligning torque. Now, on self-aligning torque, we've got a little bit of a quick start to help you get going, and particularly if you are doing this for the first time, I'd highly recommend just simply going here, applying the quick start settings. Now, as you start to tune things in, you can get a little bit more adventurous with it, but given it's your first time, I would recommend that you do that. So what we'll do is we'll click on OK there, and we'll click on OK. So what we've just done is applied some self-aligning torque settings so that ChassisSim Driver in the loop actually is going to give you some steering torque feedback, so you actually can feel something when you're driving the car. Now, in terms of refining this, let's go back to our self-aligning torque properties. The big thing you're going to be playing with here is this slip curve. Now, in particular, in terms of where you're going to be playing with the slip curve, one of the curves I'd recommend that you do is go to, say, about 1.2 degrees, make that about 0.7, and hit the Shift key and linearize that. And what you're going to do is we'll hit the Shift key, go to where we've got one at a slip angle of our peak slip angle at 3 degrees, and hit L. Now that's a good rough rule of thumb slip curve to get going with your self-aligning torque. Now, effectively, this linear bit here, the stiffer that is, the more it tightens up your steering wheel fill. And when it comes to dialing in what you need from your self-aligning torque, your peak slip angle here that you can define for here, which is in radians. If you're finding that the steering wheel is going light and fuzzy too soon, you increase that slip angle. If you're finding that it's really not, if it's getting to the point where it's just not giving you any feel whatsoever, by all means drop that down. And make no mistake, when it comes to dialing in driver in the loop, make no mistake, driver feedback will always take precedence. So that's the first thing that you'll do. And I'll just click on OK here, and I'll click on OK here and OK to save those changes. However, the big thing that you're going to be playing with when you transition from a model that you've set up from the lap time simulation to driver in the loop, what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be fine-tuning your tire force grip factors at the front, and you're going to be fine-tuning them at the rear. In particular, probably the biggest change you're going to make is that you'll typically add about, say, 5% at the front, and you're going to take off 5% at the rear. Now, the reason that you do that is one of the traps you can fall into when you're doing lap time simulation is that you get so obsessed with steering correlation, is that invariably what happens is that when you take that model and you take it to drive from the loop, it always understeers more than the actual car. And the reason it does that is, just remember, one of the big things between, say, the way the lap time simulation drives the car and an actual driver drives the car is a lifetime simulation knows exactly where the grip is. So when you start chasing that perfect steer correlation, what will often happen is that you will actually overdo is that you'll actually build in a bit more understeer into the car. And that was actually one of the big things about, particularly during when driver in the loop was going through its development phases, that was actually a really big thing. That was really a big penny that dropped for us when we were doing the driver in the loop development work. So make no mistake, when you make that jump from lap time simulation to driver in the loop, the big thing that you're going to be playing with here is that more often than not, you're going to add a little bit more front grip factor, and you're going to take away a little bit, of grip factor on the rear, just to dial that in. Now, honestly, they're probably the biggest changes you're going. They're probably what I've just shown you in terms of dialing the self-aligning torque and fine-tuning with the grip factor. They're probably the biggest changes that you're going to make. The rest of it is pretty much going to be one-to-one. So that's pretty much what you've got to do on a model side to get ready for ChassisSim Driver in the Loop. Let's now talk about what you need to do to install ChassisSim Driver in the Loop. So typically, what will happen is that when we get you going with Driver in the Loop, we're going to email you a file that looks like this. This is the ChassisSim Driver in the Loop install file. So this installs the graphical engine for ChassisSim Driver in the Loop, the ChassisSim Driver in the Loop DLL, and the assets that you're going to need for the car skins and the circuits you're going to run on. So let's install that right now. So I'm just going to click on this. Okay, so now that we've clicked on it, we have to go through some Windows permission. It's now setting up the install shield, and this will just take a moment or so to get this up and running. This is going to take a little bit lower on this computer because I've got all the recording software going, but bear with us. Okay, so this will prompt you for the install shield. You click on Next. You click on I accept the terms of the license agreement. Click on Next. And here you can put in your username, organization details. I'll click on Next. Now, and also too, just follow the prompts in terms of where this is going to go in the install shield. Sure, if you're a bit of an advanced user, you can stuff around with this, but I would probably just stick with this as you get going. So we'll click on Next. And now this is going to go through and do its thing. Okay, so we are going to unclick that because the ChassisSim Driver in the Loop executable is actually a slave application to ChassisSim. Without ChassisSim, the ChassisSim Driver in the Loop executable will not run, and it's purposely been designed that way. So we'll click on Finish, and we are good to go. So now that we've done that, what we're now going to do to set this up is that we're now going to go into the Simulate Drive menu. Now, a quick trap for young players. If you see that drive menu grayed out, not the end of the world. All you got to do is click on the right-hand side of the screen and you'll see the drive screen. So now what we're going to do is I am going to click on this. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to choose the Driver in the Loop app path. So what we're going to do here is we'll click on Driver in the Loop app path. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to dive into the ChassisSim Technologies folder. This is the ChassisSim Driver in the Loop that I've just installed. And I'm going to click on here. I'm going to click on Open. And I am good to go. Now, what I want you to do for the time being, click here for the sequential shift. When it comes to using the steering wheel, enabling the self-aligning torque, turn those off, because what we need to do here is that the first step in this process is to point this in the right direction, because it needs that for the INI files so that the car skin and the circuit menus are actually loaded correctly. And indeed, on a fresh install, you'll actually see the car skins, both the car skin drop-down box and the circuit drop-down box totally empty. That's totally normal, no need to panic. So what we're going to do here is we are going to click on OK. What that does is that basically points everything in the right direction. So this will start up ChassisSim Driver in the Loop. Now, initially, it's not going to be anything. It's not going to be anything special. The first thing you do, the first thing that you're going to do, and I actually did the wrong thing there. So also too, just a quick thing there, just basically block your audio. So go into Drive, click on OK, and now all of this will be set up for you. Now, the first thing you've got to do on a fresh install for ChassisSim Driver in the Loop is that we just need to set some screen settings. Now, because I've got another version of Driver in the Loop going, all of this has been set for me. But to do that, you hit the escape key and we go to settings. Now, the first thing you're going to do is go to video settings. So currently, what you need to do here is make sure that you select full screen and you choose the maximum screen resolution that you've got. So that way, whether you've got a wraparound screen or whether you've got a cinematic screen projecting on a proper Driver in the Loop rig, you always go down to that prop point. So we'll just click on there. We're going to click on Apply Resolution, and we'll just do that. We'll just do that again. And if it does do that, just do that for a second time. Now, the next thing that you're going to do is click on the dash settings. So here you've got a few dash settings that you can choose from. You can choose a minimalist dash, a dash that's been loosely done on a data logger. It really doesn't matter. You choose the one that best suits you. I've had some drivers who really like that data logging dash because it shows them what they're doing in terms of throttle and brake. I'm just gonna stick with the classic dash for the time being. Now, the other thing too that you can do here is if you move the dash, you can actually move this around to an area of your choosing. So I'm just going to leave it like that. And when you're done, you click on Exit. We click on Quick Game, and pretty much that's all set up. Good. That is all set up. Good to go for you. So that's the first thing you do. Now, the second thing that you do in terms of getting this, set up, let's talk a little bit about some of the settings here. In particular, I want to draw your attention to the shared memory type. So we've got two modes in ChassisSim. There's our native ChassisSim mode. There's also a legacy mode that we've set up to make sure that it will communicate to legacy dashes and the like. Now, if you are using, say, a SimCraft rig, if you are using a motion systems rig, choose the ChassisSim mode. Why? Because that has been designed to work with their motion platforms, and it's pretty much a plug-and-play situation. If you are dealing with, say, something that has not been set up like that, choose the legacy mode. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Now, if you are dealing with, say, you've got a fixed car in a motion, you've got a fixed car in a motion rig, and you don't need the dash or you don't need the car graphic, you can just go here for display options and unclick both of those. So that's totally up. That is totally up to you, and I leave that at the user's discretion. Now that we've done that, our next step is to talk. To talk about dialing in and calibrating your steering wheel. So the first thing you need to do is you're going to need to hook that up, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So now that we've hooked up our force feedback steering wheel, throttles, pedals, etc., we're ready now to calibrate that all in. So to do so, what we're going to do is we are going to click on this little tab here called Click Here to Set Up the Steering Wheel. Now, trap for young players here, and this really boils down to the fact that most antivirus software now has basically gone into extreme nanny mode. So what you'll do is you'll go to your ChassisSim executable, whether it be ChassisSim version 4.2, ChassisSim version 4.3, right mouse click on it and tell your antivirus software that you trust the application. Long story, not going to get into it, but suffice to say it's mostly due to the fact that most antivirus now has gone into nanny mode on acid. So now what we're going to do is we are going to click here to set up the steering wheel. Now, what you'll see is that when all this is done, you'll see all of your different devices displayed, not just in DirectX mode, but you'll also see it displayed with the Microsoft Human Interface device classes as well. So once you see all those successfully displayed, what we're now going to do here is that you want to go through and follow pretty much your calibration process as you see there. So you see your steer, your throttle, your brake, your clutch, your up gear, your down, and your down gear. And you pretty much want to do it in that order. So let's get started. So our first thing we are going to do before you pass go, before you collect $200, is that you click on Start Stop Global Scan first. This will tell the calibration software to start looking for all of the signals from your force feedback, steering wheel, throttle, and pedals. So the first thing we're going to do, so hands off everything. So it's just basically pretty much seeing pretty much what it is. So we're going to go to scan stop on the steering wheel first. So I'm going to move that, and as we can see, we've got our steering wheel. Now what we're going to do is we're going to click on scan stop on the throttle, and now what you want to do is you want to hit the throttle. And now we can see that the throttle. Ditto for the brake. Now, particularly for those of you who've got hydraulic brakes, you're really going to have to reef this in. So I'm going to click on the brake, and now what I'm going to do is click on the brake, and you can see now the brake is going. Now we'll click on scan stop on the up gear. I'll click on that and go up, down. So that's our scan stop for our up gear. And we'll go for our down gear, do exactly the same thing. So now that we've got all of this hooked up, what we are now going to do is we're going to go through and set up our minimums and maximums. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to steer all the way to the left, and I'm going to call that steer min. Now I'm going to go all the way to the right, and I'm going to call that steer max. Let that go. Okay, so throttle min. So I'm feet off the throttle. I'll click that as throttle min. Throttle down. That's throttle max. I'm going to go brake min. Foot off the brake. I'm now going to go full on the brake. I'm now going to go full on the brake. And go brake max. Now, as you can see, because of the fact that I had a bit of pressure there, I couldn't quite get to the max brake deflection. No need to panic. I am going to show you how you can fix that. So what we're now going to do is let's set up our gear min and gear max for the shifter. So what I'm going to do, up gear min, that's 0. I'm going to push on that, and I'm going to go up gear max. And I'm going to go down gear min. I'm going to click on 0, and I'm going to go down gear max, click on 1. So now what we've got is we've now got this all calibrated up. Now what we need to do is we click on this little button down here called Write Config File for Drive Time. I'm going to click on that, and I'm good to go. Let's now talk about where this is rounded up and where we can fix this. So what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to go into my ChassisSim Technologies folder, my ChassisSim DIL version 2 beta 2 free folder, and you're going to see here a little file called swconfig.ino. Let's open that up, and that now is pretty much the files that we've used to open this up. So if you didn't quite get, say, to full steer deflection either way, if you didn't get quite through to full brake deflection either way, no need to panic. We can fix this up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set that channel min value for the steer to 0. I'm going to set that to the full 65.35, so that gives it the full steer value. And for my brake, I can now go 42.83, click on 0, and click on OK. Now, most of the time, particularly if you're dealing with a proper rig that's, say, being provided to you by, say, SimCraft motion systems, base performance simulators, and the like, a lot of this you're not going to need to do. But I'm more showing you this for completeness. So once we're done with that, we're basically now good to go. So you can now, and I'll just click on the Start Stop Global Scan. I'm going to turn that off. Make sure I turn that off because I don't want to have the DirectX. I don't want to have the DirectX DLL sort of tied up unnecessarily. So we're done with that. We're going to click on our arrow key there. We're now going to go click here to use the steering wheel. Click here for the self-aligning torque. I'm now going to choose a circuit at random. Let's just say that I want to do Bathurst. I'm also just going to turn the volume off because it does make a little bit of a racket. And now we're ready to start driving ChassisSim Driver in the loop. So I'll click on OK. And now this is ChassisSim Driver in the loop being driven by your steering wheel inputs. Now I overbrake there, but you get the idea. All right, so that, guys, in a nutshell, is how you do ChassisSim Driver in the loop. Now, just a couple of minor things to sort of bring you up to speed on. If you go into the Drive menu, look, you set up your data acquisition pretty much exactly the same way as you would on the lap time or track replay. But just one thing to bring to your attention is number of laps to log. You can set that up. You can log as many laps as you want. You can just do an out lap. You can do 2 laps. I typically do about 2 laps. The other thing too is that I will always set my steer as a rough rule of thumb to about 25 degrees. It comes as a default of about 10, but I choose about 25 degrees. But anyway, folks, that is how you set up ChassisSim Driver in the loop. And as you can see, not particularly intimidating. And but the real takeaway of this is how much you can learn from this. Because make no mistake, and I'm not just saying this because I have a vested financial interest in this. Make no mistake, folks, you combine ChassisSim Driver in the loop with all of the other tools in ChassisSim because the code commonality is 95% throughout the whole range. This, folks, is a game changer. Indeed, to quote one of my customers / beta testers, he just said, you know what? This is the perfect full stop at the end of the process. So at that point, let me wrap up the tutorial and we'll catch you in the next episode of Dan's Vehicle Dynamics Corner or in the next ChassisSim tutorial.